Have you ever felt an inexplicable chill when interacting with someone, as if something invisible but deeply unsettling were occurring beneath the surface of their smile? Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist who mapped the uncharted territories of the human psyche, spent decades uncovering a pattern far more dangerous than overt aggression or malice. It's a silent signal, one that bypasses our rational mind and speaks directly to our primal instincts. A sign so subtle it often goes unnoticed until it's too late. Ancient traditions whispered of this danger through parables and myths, but Jung gave it a name: the shadow. And when this shadow begins to project itself onto others, what unfolds is a psychological drama that can unravel lives, relationships, and even societies. Imagine this. You're in a conversation with someone who suddenly accuses you of motives you've never harbored, emotions you've never felt, or flaws you've never displayed. Their accusations feel jarringly disconnected from reality, yet they're delivered with unwavering conviction. This person isn't reacting to you, they're reacting to a phantom, a distorted mirror image they've superimposed onto you. What you're witnessing is the shadow in action. Jung's shadow represents everything we disown within ourselves, our repressed desires, shameful impulses, and traits we deem unacceptable. These rejected fragments don't vanish. They sink into the unconscious where they fester and gather strength. When someone projects their shadow onto others, they're not merely lying or exaggerating, they're trapped in a delusion, mistaking their inner darkness for your reality. This phenomenon isn't new. Long before Jung, spiritual traditions warned of its dangers. Buddhism speaks of the darkened mirror that reflects one's own impurities as if they belong to others. Jesus' metaphor of the hypocrite who notices the speck in another's eye while ignoring the plank in their own captures the same truth. But Jung's genius lay in framing this ancient wisdom through the lens of psychology. He revealed that shadow projection isn't a moral failing, but a psychological survival mechanism. When we cannot bear to confront our flaws, we unconsciously cast them onto others, turning innocent bystanders into villains in our internal drama. The danger of shadow projection lies in its invisibility. Unlike overt cruelty or manipulation, it operates in the blind spots of consciousness. The projector isn't aware they're distorting reality. They genuinely believe their accusations. This certainty makes their narrative dangerously persuasive. To bystanders, their conviction can seem like moral clarity, especially when paired with charisma or authority. Jung observed that such individuals often attract followers not despite their delusions, but because of them. In a world hungry for certainty, absolute conviction becomes magnetic, even when it's built on a foundation of self-deception. Modern neuroscience confirms Jung's insights. Our brains are wired to seek patterns that confirm our existing beliefs, a phenomenon known as confirmation bias. But in cases of extreme shadow projection, this bias morphs into a totalizing delusion. The brain doesn't just cherry pick evidence, it reconstructs reality to fit the narrative. Researchers like Robert Johnson liken it to wearing glasses that dye everything you see in a single hue. The projector becomes trapped in a feedback loop. Their distorted perceptions shape their interactions, which in turn reinforce their distortions. How do you recognize shadow projection in real time? The telltale sign is a jarring disconnect between someone's claims about you and your lived experience. They might accuse you of greed when you've been generous, or spite when you've acted with kindness. Worse, they'll dismiss any evidence to the contrary, not out of malice, but because their psyche needs you to embody their disowned traits. You become a canvas for their unconscious self-portrait, a role you never auditioned for. What makes this dynamic so toxic is its asymmetry. While you're grappling with confusion, why are they saying this? I've done nothing wrong. The projector feels righteous, even heroic. In their mind, they're confronting a villain, not harming an innocent. This imbalance often leads to gaslighting, where the victim doubts their own reality to accommodate the projector's narrative. Over time, this erodes self-trust, leaving psychological scars far deeper than any overt abuse. But shadow projection is only the first layer of danger Jung identified. Lurking beneath it is an even more insidious pattern: ego inflation. Here, the individual doesn't just project their shadow, they become convinced of their own moral or spiritual superiority. Jung called this identification with the archetype, where the ego aligns itself with godlike ideals, the savior, the enlightened one, the infallible leader. Unlike ordinary arrogance, which is easy to spot, ego inflation wears a mask of virtue. It's not, I am great, but I am a vessel for divine truth. History is littered with examples, charismatic leaders who believe themselves chosen by destiny, spiritual gurus convinced of their own enlightenment, activists certain of their moral purity, all while leaving trails of psychological wreckage. The German mystic Meister Eckhart warned of this trap centuries ago, calling it the subtlest of sins. Zen masters coined the term Zen sickness for those who mistake spiritual experiences for personal achievement. Sufi poets wrote of the veil of light which blinds more effectively than darkness because it masquerades as illumination. The hallmark of ego inflation is absence of doubt. While true wisdom humbly acknowledges the limits of human understanding, the inflated ego speaks in absolutes. It doesn't offer ideas, it proclaims edicts. Any criticism is framed not as feedback, but as heresy, a threat to cosmic order. This rigidity stems from a fragile psyche's need to maintain its self-image. To doubt would be to confront the shadow, so the ego doubles down on certainty. Jung saw this pattern play out catastrophically in the rise of totalitarian regimes. Leaders gripped by ego inflation, Hitler, Stalin, cult figures, attract masses yearning for certainty in uncertain times. Their conviction becomes a drug, offering the illusion of control in a chaotic world. But as Jung warned, the more inflated the ego, the harder the fall. When reality inevitably contradicts their grand narrative, the psyche fractures, often taking entire societies down with it. Yet ego inflation isn't confined to dictators or cult leaders. It thrives in everyday spaces. The partner who frames every argument as a battle between good, them, and evil, you. The coworker who dismisses feedback as jealousy. The parent who equates obedience with morality. What makes it so dangerous is its invisibility to the inflated individual. They see themselves as paragons of virtue, making their manipulation all the more effective. But how does one detect such subtle toxicity? Look for reactions to criticism. A healthy ego can tolerate dissent. It knows truth is multifaceted. The inflated ego, however, perceives any challenge as an existential threat. They might respond with rage, cold dismissal, or spiritual bypassing. You're just not evolved enough to understand. Their certainty isn't rooted in truth, but in terror. Terror facing the shadow they've worked so hard to exile. Jung's insights take us deeper into the labyrinth. Beyond projection inflation lies another peril, the over-identification with the persona. The persona, derived from the Greek word for mask, is the social face we present to the world. In moderation, it's necessary. We all adjust our behavior to fit different contexts, but when someone becomes wholly identified with their mask, severing ties with their authentic self, they enter a state Jung considered profoundly dangerous. Imagine meeting someone who's flawlessly charming, always saying the right thing, never a hair out of place. On the surface, they're perfect, yet something feels off. Your gut whispers, this isn't real. Jung would agree. That discomfort is your psyche detecting the absence of authenticity. The persona-identified individual has buried their true self beneath layers of performance, becoming a hollow echo of social expectation. Eastern philosophies long recognized this danger. Zen masters speak of the original face, the self before societal conditioning. Taoist sages warn against polishing the surface until the core erodes. Jung translated these insights into psychology. When the persona becomes a prison, the repressed shadow grows monstrous in the unconscious. Sooner or later, it will erupt, often in destructive ways. Neuroscience offers a clue to why we sense this falseness. Mirror neurons, which allow us to empathize and connect, pick up on subtle mismatches between words, tone, and body language. When someone's persona is too perfect, too rehearsed, these neurons fire alarms we experience as unease. It's why we trust people who occasionally stumble or show vulnerability. Their humanity shines through the cracks. The tragedy of persona identification is its self perpetuating cycle. The more praise the mask receives, the harder it becomes to take off. The individual becomes addicted to external validation, terrified that revealing their true self would lead to rejection. Yet, as Jungian analyst James Hollis noted, the brighter the persona, the darker the shadow. Those who present as saints in public often harbor secret vices. The tireless caregiver may secretly resent those they help. This dissonance between outer image and inner reality exacts a heavy toll. Marie-Louise von Franz, Jung's collaborator, observed that persona-identified individuals often experience sudden collapses, midlife crises, breakdowns, or explosive outbursts. These aren't random misfortunes, but the shadow's rebellion. When the psyche can no longer bear the lie, it revolts, demanding integration. Jung's message is clear. The most dangerous individuals aren't those who acknowledge their darkness, but those who deny it, whether through projection, inflation, or persona identification. The refusal to confront the shadow corrupts from within. It twists love into control, wisdom into dogma, and connection into manipulation. Yet Jung's work isn't a counsel of despair, it's a call to awareness. By recognizing these patterns in others and ourselves, we begin the journey toward wholeness. But the labyrinth goes deeper. What happens when the shadow isn't just projected, but embodied? When archetypal forces hijack a person's consciousness, turning them into a puppet of primal energies? And what of the eerie repetitions, the lifelong patterns that feel like cursed destinies? These threads weave the second half of Jung's warning, a descent into the darkest corners of the human psyche. Have you ever seen someone shift before your eyes? Not physically, but in energy, presence, intensity. Carl Jung called this archetypal possession. When powerful unconscious forces override the ego, the person becomes a vessel for energies like the hero, the mother, the warrior, not themselves, but something ancient. In healthy doses, archetypes guide us, but when they possess, individuality collapses and what remains can create beauty or destruction. Possession strips away flexibility, language becomes grandiose, the eyes shine unnaturally, the possessed repeat patterns convinced of their divine role. Neuroscience shows the brain under possession quiets self-awareness and activates primal emotion centers. It feels transcendent, but in daily life, it's dangerous. Leaders consumed by archetypal myths and followers swept up in mass possession. Even in personal life, archetypes warp dynamics. A parent living through their child, a partner framing every fight as good versus evil, and it spreads. One person's possession infects others, like in genocide or now online. Jung warned, the psyche doesn't just carry danger, it amplifies it. He also spoke of repetition compulsion, the drive to unconsciously repeat trauma in hopes of healing. People relive the same toxic patterns, not by choice, but because unhealed wounds distort reality. A child of chaos seeks chaos in love. The psyche replays pain like a scratched record until we listen. Left unconscious, this cycle becomes mistaken for fate. This is negative synchronicity, unseen inner patterns manifesting through outward coincidence. A woman abused by her father keeps choosing men who hurt her, wondering why. The answer lies in buried beliefs like, I deserve pain. Until they surface, suffering repeats. The Jung offered a way out, integration. Not perfection, but owning the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny or project onto others. Asking, why did I react this way? What fear is driving me? Over time, this awareness dissolves projection. You stop blaming, you start seeing. Traditions like Buddhism mirror this, facing inner demons with compassion, not war. Neuroscience confirms it. Naming our feelings helps reintegrate the fragmented self. Those who do this work radiate calm clarity. They don't deny their flaws. They've made peace with them. Jung's final warning is also a gift. The most dangerous person denies their shadow. but the most powerful embraces it. The journey to wholeness demands courage, but in a fractured world, it may be our